Hey, it's Don. As you saw the haul video, I also have a poster video that I already did before I got the haul from the flea market with my son. You saw the hand-colored, water-colored maps that I got. Again, we'll show you one here. Keys to these. I'm going to give you the secrets, the ins and outs, and the dope on these. Now, I'm not really wanting to take these out until I'm sure they're safe to do that, so we're not going to show you a bunch of close-ups. It's the idea and the principle that's important on these. Now, let's see how close. I wish you could see these a little better. Let me see where it's at. Yeah, you probably won't even be able to see it really anyway, so let's just talk about the concepts, I guess, then at this point. Okay, so maps. Vintage maps. You saw how readily this was just sitting on a table. I didn't even buy them all. I'm not greedy. I don't have to have every map in the world. Should I have bought the rest? You know, I left some for the other person there that was looking at them as well that just hadn't asked the lady yet. So I beat her to the punch. So I felt a little weird if I went in there and bought all of the maps. Again, there was 4 or 5, 6 more that I could have probably doubled or tripled my money. I'm not a greedy person. I didn't really need to go to buy the stuff. I was literally going because someone that picks for me was actually there that had something under the table for me. It's the only reason I honestly went to the flea market the other day, plus to hang out with my son. So the maps, though, the key factors in a map is knowing things about history and specifics on areas. We'll take the Mississippi map, for example, here. The Mississippi map I could sell for a lot of money. One of the reasons is some of the city names back in 1875, 76, when these maps were made and hand-colored, had different city names. That is a key to a map. City names. Shieldsboro is the name of the town where my wife was born back then. It is now Bay St. Louis and has been since the turn of the 19th century. People want that. A map with Shieldsboro on it is extremely scarce. It was named for a specific person, I think, from the War of 1812, or maybe even earlier than that. So that makes that map worth so much more. There's all kinds of places like that as well. We talked about West Virginia and the fact that Wheeling is in West Virginia, but it used to be just in Virginia. If you have a map that shows Wheeling in Virginia, it's going to be worth a lot of money. It's the location. Just like if you have a globe that says USSR, it adds a little bit of a value because that's not what it is. Other ones are for like names. Even country names have changed. Things that weren't on a map before that are now. Things that used to be possession of another country that changed hands are another good example of things to look for. Towns that change their names, though, will almost always increase the value. It may not be a valuable map without announcing that difference. So that's the kind of thing that I would put in it for local historians. A normal person may not realize that the names have changed and just sell the map as Old Mississippi map or Old California map, and don't put those specifics in it. If you put those specifics in your description, names, scarce, checkout, and things like that, or if it says like a specific country that no longer exists because it was taken over, or whatever the case may be. You know, like Israel wasn't founded to a certain time, so you're going to find maps that don't have certain things in it. You know, Mongolia and things like that. Names have changed. Siam, perfect example of another one here. So this one with the Mississippi on it is, and again, I'm sorry about the reflection, but I don't really want to take these out until I'm deciding on what to do with them, because again, these are fragile. They will hold up, but you know, I just want to be careful with them for now. So, and it's not necessarily, you're not going to know Shieldsboro, in my opinion, so that's not going to mean much to you, but every state that I've dealt with maps from early enough have different named cities in them. So I always look for that. So keep that in mind. You're going to run into a map and find cities and stuff that have been absorbed into bigger cities, and so now the small city isn't a named city anymore. So those are things that I look for too. Now on the U.S. map, now again, I'm sorry about the glare. The U.S. map, it has Indian Territory in it. It has Dakota. It doesn't say North and South Dakota. It says Dakota. So that's what you want to look for in a map to carry value. It doesn't even have to necessarily be hand watercolored, but of course, that's what you really want. This U.S. map here, it shows in states, territories. That's what you want. So on here, let's see what else we got. There's like Arizona Territory. So you're going to have Utah Territory. It just depends on the map you're looking at. But as I said, this one has Dakota in it. And there's several other aspects of it just like that. So that's what I look for in any of these earlier maps. This one says Comanche on it. And let's see if you can actually see that. Hopefully you can. Comanche on it. So stuff like that you want to see. That says that's Comanche land, basically. You don't see that anymore. Anything with Native American references in the map are going to increase the value no matter what you're doing. And I always put territories, Indian territory, in it when I sell these, every time. If you look online and look what other people do and they don't put that in there, they will sell for less money. It's almost a given. And there's other things in here too. There's Mexican-style names and things like that that aren't in existence anymore. In fact, there's like railroad lines in some of these. And if you find ones with like railroads that don't exist, they add to the value. It's just a key thing. And it has like Canadian territories and things like that in this as well. And nothing on the back, which is almost better on any of these. So if it's just a one-sided map, it's far better than any of the other ones. Another thing to look at and not to worry about is, and I don't know how well this will show up, but this is 2 pieces of paper that have been mounted together. It was made that way. Don't think that's a deciding factor or somebody did that after the fact. Paper could only be printed at a certain size at a certain point. Even somebody who was well-to-do back then would still cost them a lot of money to get something like this. Paper had to be put together in pieces. So think about that. Don't worry about that. If you see like a big map like I just showed you put together in pieces, chances are it's an earlier map. Because after a certain point, the technology was fine and there was no issues with doing that. Now, California is another example here. You have to look out for it. It says Lower California instead of Baja, so that's another aspect. It also has San Francisco before the big earthquake that happened just past the turn of the century and the big fire that came up with it. It has only a few counties listed compared to what's there now, so that's another area and thing to look at. You know, count the counties on some of the maps, and that can give you a dating on the state. You can tell when a map was made by the amount of counties in many cases, and you can look this information up. So dating a map is usually fairly easy and straightforward. Looking at the city layout is usually straightforward. You can look at, because like this map here has the San Francisco, as I said on it. Now it shows where like buildings were. It'll say like town hall, and you can kind of see some of the structures. Now you can determine when the map was made too in some cases, because buildings were burned down and things happened after a certain date. So you can say, hey, it happened before this date that this map was made and printed at that point. You can tell that on most of the maps. Most all the time I'm able to determine that. Another thing to look for, if you see a map of California as an island, you know, you better darn well grab it if it's original. So this is what I look for in maps. Territories, county counts, and things like that. If you find one from a specific territory, and it's like an Indian territory, and it's just Indian territory, that's going to go for a lot of money. Any territory maps that just show one territory instead of the whole country, those are incredibly well selling. I have never ever had an issue selling that type of map because it's going to list Comanche property, it's going to list whatever tribe or nation that was around in that area. It's going to have them all listed out on the map. It'll have like Indian posts probably on the map as well too. I've had a couple. They're fairly scarce. It's not something you're going to run into every day. You'll be lucky to find one maybe every couple years if you're lucky. And again, most of these, and if you listen to the video, my last flea market video with my son, I talked to the lady. She bought the whole, I should have asked her how much she paid for it. It would have been really interesting to know, so you can kind of see the price range I pay for this kind of stuff. I buy atlases whenever I find them. If they have hand-colored maps in them, I don't care if the book's damaged at all, because I'm going to cut it up no matter what. So, like Texas here. Another good example. If this said Republic of Texas, I've got $1,000 on it. No lie whatsoever. You just got to pay a little attention to what's in here. And again, you've got Indian territory right up here at the top. Key factor in what's valuable in here. There's cities that have changed names. There's counties that didn't exist. Big open areas up here. Again, it says, what does that say right there? Young territory. Now, I'm not really sure on the meaning on that because this is more like a personal statement on here. I don't think that's technically what the state called it. So that was rather interesting, I thought. So young territory, meaning it was just recently acquired and added in there. I would say there's no counties in there at all, if you notice. So again, there's still territorial sections in Texas at this time. So, and again, I think this is 1875. It says States and Territories is the book that this came out of. Yeah, it's a really nice one here either way. Texas is going to sell this with all the opened land that's not marked in here, you know. So key. In Mexico, same thing. There's very few counties shown in here. Arizona Territory, unfortunately, I wished I would have listed that in there, but that's what I look for in a map. That's what you should center in on. If you're going to have a choice between spending a little more for a map that says territories and just a map that doesn't have a territory in it, go for the territory maps every time, every single time. Republic of Texas, again, as I said, is something you would definitely look for. A button from a uniform from Republic of Texas is even smashed, dug up, barely readable, could still get you $500 to $1,000. Maps are even scarcer in some extent that say Republic of Texas. For a very short time, Texas was its own country. If you didn't know that, look that up. There's another area in Mississippi, if you get a map that says Free State of Jones. The Free State of Jones is Jones County. That's where my family, my wife's family, grew up. They still live in Jones County. They made a movie on it, if I'm not mistaken, with Matthew McConaughey. But if it says Jones on it with Free State or something, it's worth a fortune. I always buy Mississippi maps because of that issue, just in case. And the wife loves them, so, you know, she actually claimed it. Marky loves the stuff. It's going to go on a wall in my office or something, probably. So with maps, that's the key to it. Hand watercolored is always a key. Now, let's see if we can show you this a little closer too. Now, the best deciding factor is to take a loop and see if that's if it's ran and not little dots. All of those little colors, every one of these little colors you see on here was painted by hand separately. That's why these go for so much money. Every little spot of color on here, someone spent an hour or better probably to do this. Religiously, this is how they did them back then. There wasn't color printing technology like there is today. So, you know, especially in large scale, large printing was hard to do as it is, and to print color on a large print like this was even harder. And that's what you see why, again, this is one that's been put together. Now you can see the line a little better on this one. It's 2 pieces of paper, perfectly fine. It's actually 3 pieces on this one. So they've glued, so they set 2 pieces, they butted them up against each other, and then there's another piece of paper running down and connecting the 2 together. Now, I do that for repairs, believe it or not. That's the same technique that I use for repairing pieces of paper that are old like this. Let's look at another one here. Which one is this one? Missouri. Now, again, it has Indian Territory right there. So I can add that officially into the title of the listing. So think about that when you're looking at these. Now, again, I wished I would have gotten to her maybe a little sooner because there might have been a better map there. But again, I'm perfectly happy going the last day and not getting every single thing. You saw me. I left stuff on the table. If you watched that whole conversation in the beginning of the flea market video, you heard the other lady was interested in too, and the vendor was joking about, I didn't want 2 people interested in the same thing. So I didn't want to be rude and obnoxious to somebody and buy everyone out from under the lady just because she was afraid to ask the person right away, or maybe she was being polite to wait till the other person was done talking. I would rather ask ahead of time. I was polite. I said, yes, ma'am, thank you, and all that kind of stuff, and just shout it out there if you have to. You see me ask, whose is this constantly throughout the video. At a flea market, the vendors walk around sometimes, and they talk to people. The gentleman I got the slip-on glasses from, for example, I've talked to him for, several years now. Really funny guy. I always pretty much know you can find something in certain booths. These are people that religiously I can find stuff at. You know, I'm not giving away a huge secret. If you talk to people, you do far better off. Don't be afraid to ask, and I don't worry about interrupting because you want to know who somebody is before somebody else snags it. I've had people grab stuff off a table standing, you know, that I'm standing right in front of me from the other side and trying to snake the sale out. So I'm cautious these days. I always ask. I don't care what the issue is. So maps, that's the key to the map. This isn't going to be a super long video, so because there's not a lot to it other than finding the map. So you got to find the map first to even decide on it. And again, flea markets are great for that kind of stuff. You don't want to go to the ones that are every single weekend because those usually have a lot of the same stuff and it's just scattered pieces. I like to go to the ones that rotate. Around here, there's usually about 2 flea markets within an hour drive from my house almost every month, if I want to go to them. And then there's some that run like 3 or 4 times a year. They're quarterly ones that are usually much bigger than the normal ones. Those are usually the best ones to go to. In my area, a lot of these flea markets may not necessarily be outside ones all the time. Now, the one I went to has them in the winter there also. But in peak times of summer now, again, we're not in summer anymore, so the vendors have stopped traveling around like they used to. So outside at that flea market, there might be 100 vendors outside, plus all of the inside ones, and those inside ones would be fully packed. So think about that when you're talking about this one, or when you're looking about going out to some of these. Hit the right ones. Don't go to the ones that are every single weekend for the most part. You're going to find some that are still good and have vendors, but the traveling vendors are always better because they have stuff from other areas of the country. They have more opportunities for sourcing than the ones that are sourcing just locally, because basically the guys that source local are sourcing in my neighborhood, so I probably could have seen the items myself, and it might just be a waste of time. Not always, but that's just a general rule. Another thing like this one here, this is Brooklyn. Any of New York I usually look for. Now this has some subway markings on it telling you where subways and stuff are. Not subways, I should say, but railroad and train stops and stuff. It has dock mentions on it. I haven't looked up the price on this one here, but I know what the last New York one I got from the 1870s went for, and it went for a lot of money, over $100. Again, they're all watercolored by hand, the whole works. City areas are marked off. Central Park is in here too, and it's not basically laid out the same way as it was back then. So these are key factors in here. Blackwell's Island. I mean, you look at some of the islands and stuff and the names when you're finding maps like this, and look for discrepancies and changes of names. It may not seem like much. It may look just like a normal map, but one word could make the difference on it. Via first once by age, or if it's, say, the person who printed or designed the map, that could be a huge factor. I originally shouted out I figured these were worth $75. That's based on the standardized ones that I find. These are fairly large. These are decent-sized maps, so I wasn't worried. And again, if I had to buy these are at least $5 or $10 a piece. So if I just sold these, I would probably get half my money back from just these top loaders for the maps. So at $10 a piece, you know, I should I have bought the rest of them? Yeah, but again, I'm not a greedy person. I really honestly don't need to source right now. I've said it before, if you get pickers and they have something and you don't even at least look at it, they just won't call you anymore. So you gotta buy it while the going's good. That's my look on it. I've got a lot of stuff here, and I do mean a lot of stuff. I mean, more so if it was just me and I had the rest of my life to list what I have right now without buying a single thing, it would probably take me most of my life to sell the rest of this stuff. You know, so take that in consideration. So at some point, maybe I will sell bulk lots to people and stuff like that. I'm not looking to do that to you folks here. I'm not looking to market my wares to any of you in that aspect. I know obviously you're paying to watch these videos, but you know, I do put a lot of time into this. You know, I was talking to a couple Patreons at that flea market, and we were talking about, you know, names and the credits. To do the credit, the ending credit with everybody's name in it, if I change one name in that credit, I have to edit it multiple times. First, I have just the program, the title section that I edit. And I do this separately. The ending credits with my stuff flying around, I add in separately after the fact. Because otherwise, I can't do the credits and the titles the same way, and I have to save files differently. So to change one name in my beginning intro takes 20 minutes minimum. I finally got a better way to do it, and it used to take 30 minutes. Because I'd have to find space and move them around and all kinds of stuff. Now I've got them all alphabetical. So when you see, it takes sometimes, you know, a few days to get your name in once you've joined, you know, the Patreon group. And then if you drop off or whatever the case, and you don't think it's worth your while, which is perfectly fine, no hard feelings to anybody, because I've joined things and just wasn't happy with them. It's fine. I completely understand. So when you drop off, it may stay on for another week or two again for the same reason. So I try to levy it out the best I can. I'm not worried if somebody's name shows up and they're not in there for a week or so. I'm not petty about anything like that, you know. I want to give everybody credit for the support, so that's why I put the names in there, and it does take an effort to do that. I know that's kind of off topic, but I spend a lot of time on this, and, you know, I try to give you the best sourcing information, the best knowledge I can on the information that I personally know. Again, I don't talk about junk that I don't know. I'm not going to feed you some line. You know I know maps. You know I know most everything that I talk about. You know, I knew these were watercolored instantly. You can hear me talking with the people. So I have people say that, you know, I make up stuff about this, you know, and I don't really care what they say anymore about stuff like that. I know what I do, and I know I make money off of it. And I know enough folks who are in the Patreon or even on YouTube can state that that's a fact, because you're finding the stuff and you're making money now off of it. Let's veer off for just a minute here. That's really about the keys to the maps, or knowing stuff like the information I just gave you. until you find them, you know, that information is not going to do you a lot of good. So anyway. As to hit postcards, they were running a sale the other day. You didn't have to be part of it or anything, but the point on that is, and I wished I would have thought about it. With everything going on, I didn't. I marked down some of mine in eBay, which marks them down on hit postcards. So I was part of the sale to some extent. So I did get some more sales out of hit postcards, a pretty decent amount. Now there's 3 folks in here that I know are using hit postcards and sold stuff the very first day they did it and paid for a couple months worth of hit postcards. I can't tell you what your store level is going to do in hit postcards, but I can tell you every month I have done it, I've made a pretty good return, and it's been well worth the effort because I got no effort into doing it. I clicked a button and all my listings showed up. That's it. I don't have to take them down from eBay or anything else. Now, you've talked about the hit postcards Inferium section. I'm going to look into that. I know it's there. I just, with everything going on and stuff, I haven't had a full chance to do all that. Will I do it? Yes, I promise this week I will dig into that. I will set it up first. We'll talk about it and I'll show you. And once I get that figured out, I'll show you guys how to do it too. Now, you can list to Del Camps. There's a few other sites that you can list to from hit postcards, if I'm not mistaken, too. Again, I haven't dug into everything. We do sell on many platforms ourselves, so I will show you all the new ones. Another good thing, too, I just got a message from somebody who did get ungated in a couple collectibles categories. Now, I'll have to dig into that to figure out. I don't want to haul any names out. You know, I'm not wanting to call anybody out personally. That's just not my thing unless they say it's okay. But somebody did get ungated in a collectibles section, and they can sell collectible records and CDs from what I understand. So it is not totally blocked on you. So for those folks who have not been lucky enough, please give me a shout out if you can on where you stand on that aspect of it. Where you want to be to sell postcards in anything historical paper-wise on Amazon is you want to get ungated in historical stuff. The historical section of collectibles is where you want. Collectibles in general are good with the entertainment section as well, which I'm ungated on those. Again, it took me more than a month. That was 3+ years ago. So it looks like it's harder, but it looks like it is not totally locked off from everybody. I don't know what the ins are out on this because, again, I got in 3 years ago. I can't get any answers from Amazon on that whatsoever. If you call, all you're going to get is their help desk for item specific, and you're not going to get on the ungating department that I'm aware of. I don't know how to get in touch with them. I wish there was an answer on that, and I don't know anybody who does, in all honesty. I've called them and never gotten anywhere. I've went in circles. I've emailed them and all that kind of stuff. They answer. They're usually from India, the ones that I have personally addressed just by the English that was either spoken or the typing manner that was written. So I'm not trying to criticize anybody from any place specific. That has no bearing on it. There's just a difference in wording, and maybe it doesn't come across to some countries what you may be trying to express. So no ding or dog on anybody because, you know, I'm not a motivated person by ethnicity or anything like that. I could care less what anybody else does with their life whatsoever in any way, shape, or form. I live my life and you live yours. You can pretty much guesstimate that that's how I am just by how I act and talk. So, you know, the category is still unlocked, technically. I know it may say they're not accepting me, but I've got confirmation from one of our patrons in here that they got ungated in part of Amazon's collectible category. Records are a good one to get ungated into, as long as it's the right one in the collectibles category. So when you go to list in that section, it should be collectibles first, and then you're going to subcategory it down to vinyl. And then there's CDs. The CDs, when you do that, I usually list those in the entertainment section in collectibles. If it's a music related, because there's an entertainment music section in Amazon, if you didn't know that. And if you haven't been on Patreon very long here on my page, if you go back many videos, I mentioned some of Amazon in there. I show you the category breakdown so you can see that I'm unlocked in it without any doubt whatsoever that I've been unlocked in that section for a very long time. I know very few people that are unlocked on that or ungated in that section, not because they didn't try, just because they don't sell that kind of stuff. I know one other person that I've talked to that is ungated in Amazon too that sells magazines in the vintage section as well as in books and stuff. And he'll sell vintage magazines in the standard book section under the back issue section. So if you've got vintage magazines, you're pretty safe in listing them in there. Just make sure to list them in the acceptable condition and don't go too high on condition on Amazon because you could have some issue. The other thing on Amazon for listing collectibles that I find is they're more accepting of damage on Amazon, it seems, for issues with a vintage item than they are on eBay. eBay, they'll jump on you for sending them something that maybe not as nice a condition as they're expecting. But on Amazon, I've never had a complaint, and it may just be that people don't know how to complain, or it's just not a big issue factor to them. They just wanted something old. People that don't collect, I feel, buy a lot of that. They just see something like a magazine from the month they were born, or the day they were born. Stuff like that adds to the value on items on Amazon, in my book. Now, I may bring on a Patreon in here on, and we maybe do like a chat if the person's interested. They sell magazines on there, and I'm going to reach out to them as well. You may know who you are and what I'm talking about. Just to give you an idea from someone who's doing that more heavy than I am. Again, we're working on cross-listing and having our own site up shortly here. Hopefully next month, if all goes well. This put me back, 8-10 days here with all this stuff going on. So it may be pushed off. I really wanted it done by now. I thought it was going to be a little easier than it was, and we've been looking even into a secondary third-party app, Ecom Dash, only because it's a little cheaper and they offer more visual stuff to help you along. They do offer like a paid by hour service, but I would never do that. I'd rather figure it out myself, because at least then if I figure it out myself, I know it because I played around and I investigated. When I figure out programs and apps, even in school, I did far better just messing around than even reading the book most of the time. I'm really good on figuring out apps and applications and IT tech stuff. I mean, that's I love it. I don't do it really much other than for a church women's group that I help out when they have technical stuff, or if somebody donates laptops or something. I'll go down and get them running for them. I don't charge them anything. Usually they let me look in their back room when I do this, and I can buy stuff before it goes off the floor. And that's not the reason I'm doing it. We used to buy clothing there, and they help and donate stuff. So sometimes if we have extra vegetables and we grew tomatoes or something, I'll take them down there and they'll donate them. So just a touch on that. There's a lot to cross-listing to some extent, but I gave you hip postcards because it's one of the easiest ones to do, and I know a bunch of you went ahead and did it. So, I know it's a good thing. It's not going to create a huge bunch of income for you off the bat, but $20 or $30 extra a month times 12 is enough to give you some extra good money. And again, you do this to one site, to two sites, to three sites, and instead of just $300 off one site a year, you may now be up to $1,000 extra. $1,000 is someone's payment for their house or rent, depending on what level of building or house you have. So that's why that's important to me. We've bundled our stuff together. Just like when you're going out sourcing, you bundle a whole bunch of stuff together and you get a better price. You bundle a whole bunch of little businesses together and you now have a bigger business. And it just encompasses it. It's what I look for and what I think is the best bet on this. Pick off the little ones if you're nervous on cross-listing. Hip postcards is a very good one to go. And again, I will look into the other ones. There's two more options we'll put up with you. As I said, Hip postcards does have another page, and I think it's Del Camps or Del Champs. I can't think of the name. I actually use the site, and I'm kind of brain dead on that now. We've been taking turns watching our Jinx, so. Just FYI, she's my baby. We call her the baby girl and stuff like that. Or anyway, so I just want to let you know I'm going to look into that as well too. So anyway, that's literally about it for this one here. Questions on that, let me know. But those keys that I pointed out on the maps are what the distinguishing factor I look at personally to make more money on maps. I do buy maps that aren't hand watercolored, but they have to have Indian Territory as something really worthwhile or big or unique or something along that line. But anyway, I hope that really helps you out. As always, leave any comments, questions, concerns down below, and I will address them. And again, I honestly and sincerely thank you. The wife thanks you. The whole family does for all the support and stuff. You can see we do this as a family. You've seen the wife involved here. My oldest isn't as big on being in my videos. He does school mostly. He works for me in the evenings mostly as well. So, you'll see my youngest one. You'll probably see my oldest and the whole family as well as my employees for a Christmas video we were trying to think about. So, you'll see everybody who works here. So you can see it's not just us. I've got twins that work for me too, which everybody has an issue with just because it's kind of hard sometimes. Nowadays they have different haircuts, so it's a lot easier. Ian and Justice both work here and they're twins. So, and they're friends of my youngest, and they've come and stayed at my house. My son plays and hangs out with them, and they go out and spends the night at their house and stuff too. So I've got good employees and nice people that work for me. I wouldn't have it any other way. So anyway, I thank you all for your support.